Once again, going back to Portland, Oregon. Headline reads, once booming city offloads. Fire sale. Office tower at 80% discount amid urban decline as woke policies backfire. Portland, Oregon has the perfect storm for the doom loop to just keep on a going because, like this title reads, office tower, we've got 2 office towers now that are closed on the books, and they are selling for 80%, 90% off of original valuation. What's that do for tax ramifications down the road? Tell you what, it's not pretty. That doom loop keeps a looping. Let's get into it. Here we go. We had Big Pink, which is a big office tower. It's kind of got a pink hue to it. It's, big pink building. And what you've got is a situation where Big Pink closed, and it was like 85, 90% off of valuation from, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it might have been. And then most recently, the Pac West building, which is, I think, the 4th largest building. You've got the tallest building, and you've got the 4th tallest in Portland. It also just sold last week for $55.7 million, basically dirt value again. You've got buildings selling for dirt value because the street conditions of Portland are such that nobody wants to invest in Portland. Other cities have come back. San Francisco has come back. Seattle has come back. Neither one of them to the point where they were prior to the pandemic, granted. And are there still problems with Portland with San Francisco and Seattle? Absolutely, 100%. Seattle might have some more problems because it looks like we're going to get a socialist mayor. That should be fine. Katie Wilson, 0 experience being a mayor, but hey, neither does Mondami, and they're going to elect him probably as well. So just be a, political season of socialism. We'll get to see how socialism doesn't work again. But what you've got in Portland is you've got that perfect storm of the whole summer of love, and then all these companies leaving, working remotely, work from home phenomena. But then Portland's street conditions just got worse. And Portland is still sitting around going, how do we work our way out of this one? But because of leadership, and not leadership that will take a stand and say, hey, we got to really get after this. Finally, just now, November 1st, I'm recording this for you on November 3rd. November 1st, Portland says, its mayor says that they're going to start arresting for, camping in the wrong spot. Well, San Francisco and Portland, San Francisco and Seattle have been doing that for a while, and their downtown cores are getting cleaned up. They're not perfect by any means whatsoever. And do you have companies streaming into them? Well, you've got AI companies streaming into San Francisco. You've got that. Seattle, not as much, but not as cored out as Portland is. So let's get into some of the stories here. All right. West Coast city of Portland, Oregon is being forced to slash the sales price, one of its biggest office buildings, after it became overrun with homeless people. 100% true. Literally, quite literally overrun. Portland, known for its liberal policies, has seen its downtown suffer after its failed attempt at drug decriminalization and a whole bunch of other progressive policy that clearly doesn't work out, just like socialism, right? The city office vacancy rate was 35% the first 3 months of this year. Some of the highest in the United States. And it's because businesses aren't coming back. Nobody wants to rent space in a city that's got a zombie problem, that's got homelessness everywhere, that's got people crapping on the streets, urinating on the streets. Nobody wants to be in that environment. And at night, only people you got are homeless and security guards because there's no police. You defunded the police, and, when your police are not working with law enforcement, like ICE, big companies don't want to deal with those kind of shenanigans. It's just, the ideology is just gone wildly sideways, and it's showing up in the end result, which is you've got the sales of these buildings that are data. It's data. It's no longer a pending sale. Well, it might sell for this. It's no longer an active listing, which is what a property won't sell for because otherwise it'd be sold. It's a closed sale. It's a historical fact. It's a piece of data. Now, one of the most telling signs of the downtown decline is the sale of the U.S. Bancorp building, also known as the Big Pink. Tower known locally as Big Pink because of its rose-tinted stone and windows is more than half empty. I mean, and it sold literally for dirt price, right? This is a 1.2 million foot building. Here's Big Pink. This sold for $45 million. Yeah, that sold for $45 million. The dirt alone is worth that, right? But because street conditions in Portland are so terrible, and you know what? The other major factor is you got super high taxes and you've got an environment where Portland is going to have to tax business in order to keep paying those bills because guess what? All the tax revenue from not only the excise sale of the sale of these buildings, but also the future, and we're going to get into that in a second, the future assessed value of all these properties is going to drop, thereby reducing taxable income to the city coffers. So the city's going to have to tax not only its high worth individuals, pushing them out, but also its businesses. It's going to have to go after some of those entities. You can't squeeze money from stuff that isn't there. So that's Big Pink. Fire sale of Portland's, and this, even the Wall Street Journal is taking notice, right? Fire sale of Portland's largest office tower shows how far the city has fallen. Noticed, might fall is not used here. Has fallen. Took the tumble. Just boop. Yep. And it has taken a much greater tumble than other cities have. And because it's that whole keep Portland weird, man. You know what I mean? Hey, what could go wrong if we decriminalize drugs? Oh, sheesh. Overdoses skyrocket. Your street conditions get even worse. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Hey now, right? I mean, it's like, what? You do it? Oh, decriminalizing heroin? Just let them shoot up in the street. Oh, okay, that should be fine. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, I don't understand why we can't get any Class A, space signed up here. What's the dealio, right? No, you got a bunch of Looney Tune people crapping on the streets, running around chasing each other with machetes, right? Because that's the weapon of choice. Machete. I was just doing some gardening in an urban jungle. We're in concrete land, man. Yeah, machete, right? Urban doom loop. Portland Metro Chamber Economy Report paints grim picture. Square this one away from you so you can read that. All right. Reason I'm bringing this to your attention is this was published back in February of 25. Yeah. 9 months ago, whatever that math is, right? Portland Metro Chamber delivered a sobering report about the city's economy Thursday morning, delving into data on migration, job growth, as well as the positioning of Portland among its peer cities. Dead last. Dead last. We got, for one, the report showed a decline in population in both Multnomah and Washington counties. You got people moving out, don't have people moving in. Further, national labor market grew. Rest of the country grew. Metro area lost jobs in high-paying sectors such as information, manufacturing, and financial services. Nobody wants to run a business in Portland. Nobody wants to run a business in Oregon if they can help it, because you're getting taxed so heavy. And then if on top of that, you call 911 because you got a Looney Tune out in front of your big office space, running around chasing people without a shirt on, he's whacked out of his mind on meth, and you're calling 911 and the cops don't show because they only got a handful of cops for any given shift. What are we paying all these high taxes for? What are we doing here, folks? Well, you're creating the doom loop. That's what you're doing. You are creating the doom loop. And the doom loop is getting turbocharged because all these comps, if you're not familiar with me, I'm an appraiser by trade. You've got comparable sales now in the forms of the two sales that we're talking about here. The Pac West building, which closed last week for $55.7 million. That's 500,000 square feet. That one had been updated, and we'll look at the sale. But you got two big skyscrapers in Portland that have sold basically for land acquisition value, that have big buildings on them, one remodeled, one not. And what that does is all comparable sales moving forward. Yeah, there might be a little bit of question. If you're the owner of a building in downtown Portland and you're catching wind of these comps, maybe if they're not exactly like your building, you're going to go out and look and find other comps that are more similar to your building, and guaranteed those are selling for a song as well. So this is that compression we're about to talk about. The dollars to Portland are being compressed. Meanwhile, lower income earners are adding to the numbers in the Portland metro, which is failing to keep up with the high cost of living. Super high cost of living. This is best coast, west coast. All the progressive ideology is just absolutely going sideways. It is the doom loop. Economist warns of Portland doom loop. And now that then they're in the middle of this, and everybody's got budgets that are busted, right? Oh, I don't have the tax revenue come. Now you've got the sale of these buildings that is going to have, it's going to have a major impact. Now, one thing I would say is 60% of Portland's revenue comes from residential taxation. Those values have not dropped yet substantially, but they haven't dropped substantially across the U.S. either. If you see something like a 2% drop in value, that's about as much as any of the major metropolitan markets have dropped, because we simply don't have enough supply for what few buyers are out there able to afford at today's mortgage rates, which are considerably higher than during the pandemic, right? All right, let's keep going. So Economist warns of Portland doom loop. Again, this is back February 2025. Now that doom loop is happening in real time. Now, if you think I'm just babbling about a couple of big buildings, I am. However, how Walt Bowen's big bet on a Ritz-Carlton hotel and condos crapped out. We've talked about that in depth. That building is in play. The Ritz-Carlton, I stayed in downtown Portland, maybe a month ago? I don't know. A month ago, during the middle of all that, the ICE building, just absolute going nuts down there. And I stayed in a Hilton in downtown Portland, and it was cheap for a Hilton that was nice. I didn't have anything fancy, but it was well under $200. And that is for a nice downtown area, hotel. Now, there's a couple of areas in Portland that you don't have the actual craziness. You've got just basically boarded up storefronts, that main level commercial, and then you've got a bunch of security guards roaming around, because you got to kind of keep that financial district somewhat vacated from the riffraff, homeless, drug-addicted individuals. So they're like, just a few blocks away from where I stayed. And I went there, of course, and I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted. But in the middle of the night, when I was walking back from the ICE facility, like midnight, or I don't know, 1:00 is when I think I got back to my hotel. I ventured off to the Pete's on 4th, and it's a 24-hour meth mini-mart. That was entertaining. That was interesting. So I have kind of all of this boots on the ground walking around downtown Portland, recognizing you can't really tell if there's a store in a space, because everything is so boarded up, because you might have whacked out nut jobs bashing in windows, or Antifa, which is apparently more than a myth now that they've been beating on the ICE facility down in Portland for 25 nights, 130 nights, something like that. It's just crazy. It's crazy that this is happening. But you got a Ritz-Carlton project absolutely going sideways as well. They can't sell the condos. They're super high-end condos. Can't really rent out the Ritz because nobody wants to stay at the Ritz in Portland. And I should have checked out how much that would have been to stay there. I really don't I've stayed at a couple of Ritzes before. The one Ritz that I somewhat enjoyed, because it was a church deal or something like that, was in Hawaii. Too fancy. Ritz-Carlton, too fancy for me. I'd rather stay in a flop hotel that's, got great access to beach or something cool. Like, I just don't care. It's not, hey, look at the insignia on the towel. Do not care. But you've got projects all over Portland that are just literally hanging on, right? And here's our second skyscraper we're talking about. One of downtown Portland's tallest skyscrapers has been sold after a few months on the market. And that is really quick marketing time. For a big skyscraper like this, these things can sit on the market for years. But these things are so discounted in order to get a sale, in order to effect a sale, that people are literally lining up to buy them because they're such a deal. Now, they only really become a deal when you can acquire them at a song, because that means whatever debt you take on, you can probably pretty easily cover with, whatever tenant improvements or whatever you're going to do. Now, this building here was remodeled. It had like $44 million in renovation done to it. And this is the Pac West building. And let's go ahead and I'll show you what we're talking about here. So here's the Pac West Center. That is right here. And Big Pink is right here. And the three parks that Summer of Love that I went down to and looked at were here. Waterfront area here on the Willamette River. And then further to the south, about, 2 miles to the south is the ice facility. But let's get back to this one. Newmark has announced that an unidentified buyer, it was a buyer from Alaska, purchased the Pac West building for an undisclosed amount last Wednesday. Well, it was $55.7 million. Dirt. Literally dirt price. The real estate firm listed the 500 and something thousand square foot property, the fourth tallest in the city in May. So May, June, July, August, September, October. That is, man, for a building in Portland, tells you how much of a deal it was, right? Tells you how much of a deal it was. There were multiple rounds of competitive bidding, because they listed it and it went up because people knew that this property had been renovated. And so you can hop in and make this bad boy go, right? Whereas Big Pink, you're going to have to do some renovations. So now you've got comparable sale number 2. Hey, you got comp number 1 at $45 million. You got comp number 2 at $55.7 million. You don't even have anything over 100. And those are 2 of your biggest buildings in Portland. So everything else is going to be less. All those assessed values that were at one time way more, those are being heavily impacted because of street conditions, because of high taxes, because of progressive leadership that can't really work their way out of a wet paper bag, looks around and goes, well, I guess we start arresting people for homelessness now. Should have been doing that 5 years ago, right? Should have never allowed this to happen the way it did. Should have never allowed the ICE facility to be beat upon by Antifa night after night after night after night. Because big companies, they don't know that it's a couple of miles away from whatever building that they're looking at. All they do is hear Portland and they go, no, pass. We'll pass on that. No, thanks. We don't need that in our lives. We can go to another city, get a sweet discounted lease in some really good space, and our employees, our management team, our customers can go to that building and not have whacked out homeless folks roaming around the street level, defecating out in front of the building and chasing each other around with a sword. They can have that in other cities, and that's what they're doing. And that's why Portland has just, is succumbing to the doom loop. I mean, it's pretty wild stuff, right? Here we go. Pac West Center sells for $55.7 million to out-of-state buyer. Did a podcast. I've done podcasts on all this stuff. So you want to do a deep dive into our channel. I've got individual podcasts on all of this. The funny thing about this one was the price, though low by historical standards, wasn't brutally low. I love that. It wasn't brutally low. It was really low, but not brutally low. Brutally low indicates doom loop for a long time. You're going to have to bring in some leadership who's going to have to take some knocks and is going to have to be able to stand in the pocket and take some hits, because in order to bring your business community around, you're going to have somebody who is more conservative to do that. No more of this kumbaya, namby-pamby bullshit. You're going to have to bring somebody in that can actually get Portland cleaned up. And with the way constituents vote in Portland, I don't see that happening anytime soon. So, podcast for days, you know that whole drill. So it wasn't brutally low like the one for Big Pink in July. So everybody knows this isn't good. This isn't what we signed up for. We said, hey man, keep Portland weird. Not, hey man, keep Portland a fire sale. Right? And whether you think that this is going to have the impact that I know it is, because these sales moving forward are your data for comparable sales, for establishing value on these big commercial buildings, which represents a good chunk of revenue to the city. Without that revenue, you're going to have to go looking elsewhere. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to have to come up with progressive revenue. Meaning, you're going to have to tax wealthy people and businesses. Because what else you got? Property tax? All right. Throw that out there. See what happens there. This came out just last week. And again, we've got a full podcast on this. Portland City Council gets a lesson in tax compression, courtesy of Big Pink. When it sold at a deep, deep discount in July, the iconic building set a bad precedent. So what did Portland do? Portland literally brought in their chief assessor and assessor number 2 to kind of basically just go through what this means to the city of Portland. And I'm not going to go through this because I did an entire podcast on it, but what you want to focus on is this is assessed value. Get my yellow guy here. This is assessed value, which has stayed very stable because of a couple of propositions in Portland. Now, this is assessed value. Assessed value has dropped. So now you've got a situation where real value, the red line, is lower than the stabilized assessed values, because that's the policy that Portland wants to carry. That means, values don't scream upwards. But now we're at a point where they're going down, and that means there is some further compression, because assessed values are always like 90% of real value. So now you got real value dropping below you were, another 10% below that, and you're on a real downward trajectory. And these things will not be jumping back up in value anytime soon, because you've got a whole bunch of buildings that have been impacted by progressive policy, and it's going to take literally years to work your way through them. Meantime, in Portland, Oregon, you've got politicians that can't really figure out what to do. They're trying real hard at something, but bottom line is, until you show some balls, until you show the ability to clean up your streets, to take a stand, to actually work with law enforcement. I don't even know what that means in Portland, because the police bureau there is just they've just completely kowtowed to the progressive ideology that, ICE is bad. Since when is deporting criminal illegals from your community bad? Right? I mean, when is that a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's what needs to happen. So did Obama. How many did he deport? 3 million? All right. Yeah. And so you've got a situation where you've got all of these things kind of working together. And because it takes this long to sell commercial real estate, as far as, things are terrible here. Yep. And things just got worse. Okay. And we're not having more people sign up leases, and we're having more and more tenants leave, because ultimately street conditions in Portland aren't going to get better anytime soon. Mayor has basically said as much. But you know what's wild is if you heard the governor and the mayor talk about it, everything's stable. Nothing to see here. You can just walk around with your partner hand in hand and everything's great. So then why did Big Pink sell for $45 million? Why did the Pac West building sell for 55 and change? Basically dirt acquisitions. Why did those sell for so cheap? And beyond the whole, hey, we're sending everybody to work from home. Beyond that, why that? Why that? Yeah. Because you got a bunch of ideology that doesn't work, and you got a bunch of whacked out drug addicts chasing each other with knives, with machetes. I've literally podcasted that. So it's really no wonder, right? You get what you sow. You get what you reap. And Portland's getting a big, fat doom loop that will continue for quite some time until you start to see folks buying these buildings, doing their renovations, doing their thing, getting the streets cleaned by whatever means possible. Because without those streets cleaned up, you got nothing. People won't want to rent in these buildings because you got to go outside sometime, right? You can only hide in the parking garage for so long. You can only hide in the lobby for so long. And that kind of defeats the purpose of being in a downtown urban setting. You want to be able to have your employees, your management, your customers walk around and go, hey, it's a great area. You picked a really good spot. I appreciate your leadership of this company. Thank you so much for bringing us here. Instead, with Portland the way it is right now, you're like, good Lord, we got to get out of here before it's dark. We got to get out of here before it's dark because, yeah. And not every part of Portland is like that, but enough parts of Portland are that this is the impact. Massive fire sales, actual pieces of data, not just some jackass up in Seattle babbling about comparable sales. 2 major closed sales in a pretty small commercial market that are going to have a huge precedent moving forward. And the city knows it because the city council literally brought in their assessor and did this little number. We'd like to have a tax compression lesson, please. This doesn't sound good. And it wasn't. And it's because it means Portland's going to have to tax their constituents and businesses and wealthy people even more. Like I said, podcast for days, weeks, months, you name it, I'll be there. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much. Love to have you subscribe. Do all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.